hailing back all the way from the days of Medarot R and making a return in Medarot 8. It is the motorcycle type IHS00 Iron Horse, with a kit of Support Trap, Repair Plant, Charge Plant, Wheeled Legs, and the leg ability of Accel, which grants a mobile boost effect to self when charging Metaphors. Now, as a strictly and pure setup-based kit, Iron Horse is definitely a rather interesting addition, especially one that's available in the permanent pool. This does mean that Iron Horse can be picked up by basically anyone that's been playing longer than, say, a week, if they have not already collected all of her, or at least seen her twice or even thrice when pulling for other bots. But while she may not look like much at first glance, her support and passive kit does actually have some rather interesting skills that, if used correctly, can make her a very valuable supporter on the field. Support Trap on her head is a setup skill that, once a trap is placed on the enemy's side, anytime the enemy chooses to use a support-based skill. This can be anything from Dominion, to Shoot Boost, to Mobile Boost, to Guard Boost, to even Field Control or anything of the like. Anything marked with a green support skill that triggers this will result in passive aggression being dealt to that part. And, more often than not, it is also worth noting that a good chunk of support-based parts that you'll see are actually also head parts, which means that this might be a good possible way to deter some passive aggression on the field and maybe even secure a kill if the enemy is not quite smart in the head. Right Arm of Repair Plant is a setup-based skill that is set as a plant instead of a trap. This means that it will affect your side with some positive boosts. In this instance, Repair Plant, once placed, will passively restore just a little bit of HP to all parts of a user over time if it detects that they have taken some damage. Now, this honestly doesn't amount to a whole lot, personally. Say maybe 400 tops maybe if it's a really good plan. So you really won't see a whole lot of use of Repair Plant, but if you do need something with passive HP restoration and can't quite fit a pure healer or dedicated healer in the team, this is honestly still a very good go-to as well. And Left Arm of Charge Plant is actually going to be one of the most useful parts of Iron Horse in my personal opinion, primarily because, much like Repair Plant will place a passive plant on the field, Charge Plant will do the same thing but has a little bit more of an active trigger to it. When charging Metaforce on your turn, Charge Plant will activate and grant you just a little bit extra on that turn. So instead of spending about 4 turns or so to fully charge a gauge of just charging Metaforce, you may actually get it in maybe 2 or even 3 if you're fast enough, which means this is very good not just for Metaforce spam as a last-ditch effort, but it also is even more so beneficial to anyone that is Metaforce reliant. That includes anything from laser, to beam sword, to press, to break. Anything that requires CG can definitely make use of Charge Plant while on the field. Wheeled Legs means that Iron Horse will have very high base mobility, arguably one of the fastest on the field, at the cost, of course, that Wheeled Legs are also very picky, naturally, at only having about 2 terrains at best that are A rank or better. And that is also including Cyber, which everybody gets at S rank. Now, as a support-based fighter, again, there really isn't a whole lot to expect from Iron Horse if you don't know how to use her, but when it comes to the armor department, she definitely is lacking a pretty fair bit of armor in my personal opinion. A head just barely 3100 HP, arms about 2550 each, and her legs at about 4050 means that she has a relatively lighter armor pool and will be susceptible to being crippled relatively easily if a good hit will come in and land. But when it comes to her leg stats, her leg is arguably one of the best budget wheeled legs that you can collect early on, especially as a 3-star part. Not taking the fact that Accel, which is basically mobile boost when triggered, will boost her mobility by another 50% once that skill is activated. She's already packing over 900 base mobility in the mobility category, which is very good and most certainly par for the course with wheeled legs. A melee resist of 935 isn't too shabby, but she can hold her own moderately well up close and personal. But a shoot resist of 1075 does tell you that Iron Horse will be a really nice middle-of-the-road type of leg, which means you can use this moderately well and expect a pretty equal performance when reducing damage. But an evade of 1215 is also very nice to keep in mind, as this does mean she will have a relatively decent time being able to dodge or graze low success attacks. All this being said, as a pure set skill, I still do have to rate Iron Horse a pretty low 4 out of 10 when it comes to a pure set, primarily because what she lacks in combative capability, her kit kind of trips over and steps on top of itself in order to do it properly. While support, trap, and either plant really won't interfere with each other too much, as plants and traps are two separate things, repair plant and charge plant kind of force you to choose one or the other in this case, because once a plant is in place, and this also applies to traps, once one is in place and you apply another one, it will overwrite the original, which means, like I mentioned, you are going to have to choose whether you want a repair plant or charge plant on the field. However, as mixed parts, I have to absolutely boost Iron Horse's score to very, very high, to a staggering 7 out of 10. Even though her combative capability, again, is pretty much non-existent, the passive abilities that she can offer on the field definitely will pay themselves back if used correctly. The legs are probably going to be the most useful part on Iron Horse in my personal opinion, as anyone can get them moderately easy and have a very good performance on them no matter how you use them, whether that be at up close at range or at long from afar with taking pot shots.